Tech Cocktail Sessions, educational and inspirational talks from experienced startup founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders.
So I should probably give you a little bit of context first, and then I'll be honest, I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to talk about, so you guys are going to help me figure out that path, and hopefully that path is the most valuable possible path for you, because you've heard a lot of really interesting insights so far. So let me do the 120-second bio. I started probably about 9 years old programming, designing at like 12 or 13. I went to college, went to business school at Emory. I started a concert production company, throwing 3,000 to 5,000 person shows. All my friends thought I was totally crazy. And I think maybe they were right, but I basically didn't listen to them. I was like, I'm going to do this show, and it was working. I graduated, became a TV producer in New York, left New York, came down here about 8 years ago, and started working for a number of ad agencies as a digital strategist, and basically did my job too well, closed millions of dollars in new business, and got laid off because I would have made too much money for how old I was, and that was politically untenable, I guess, for the elders in the organization. So that Friday, I got laid off. I got really drunk that night, hung out with my friends, and on that Monday, I launched a stupid WordPress-powered blog called istrategylabs.com, and had a really awful logo that I designed using Illustrator's fantastic 3D functions, which all the designers in the room are puking right now. And I sent an email to 5,000 people that I had met over the course of my life, and one of those people was the creative director at Geico, and he emailed back and said, "This is awesome, you know more about digital than anyone I've ever met. Do you want to do a project?" And obviously I said yes. I'd starve if I didn't. I had 3 months of living expenses in the bank. And in the course of that year, I just hustled my face off. I was the only employee. I started the company in my apartment in Logan Circle. And within that first year, basically by month 12, hired my first employee, got a small office in DuPont Circle. The next year I had 3 employees. Third year I had 6. Last year, 2011, started with 7. We have 23 today, hired basically, I guess, 1 every month for 16 months or something like that. Fully bootstrapped, and work with 10 of the Fortune 100 and 24 of the Fortune 500, and mostly do design and technology development and marketing and experiential, so that's stunts and guerrilla marketing and all sorts of ridiculousness. We hack the physical world all day, so really cool, fun project we did for GE. We hacked a 72-year-old antique fridge to let 10 friends check in on Foursquare to unlock it to get the free beer inside. So we're really focused on how is all of this stuff moving into the real world. And so if you can think about like the weird backgrounds of concert production and TV production, that's about big physical stuff in the real world, and then going way back to the programming piece. In the course of that time, so I have 23 employees. I hope I'm the world's best boss. I don't know. I mean, people don't leave, right? Which is the first indicator. And especially as an agency, that's not normal. I don't know has anyone ever worked in an ad agency or a digital agency context where you have friends that do? I mean, the average tenure is like 18 months, right? And then you're gone. We're still a young company, but I mean, all the first people that I hired are still there. Except, this is interesting, I keep learning every day, which is so exciting. My first hire was my younger brother, my chief operating officer, and last week we announced that we're transitioning him out of the company. And I always feared that. Like greatly feared that. I sort of knew inherently that was going to have to happen one day, and I feared that it would be like I was going to fire him and bite his face off, and he was going to hate me, or he was going to quit and set the office on fire on the way out, and stuff like that. Those are the kind of things that you think about. But in the reality was we were sitting in a meeting, just he and I, and we're trying to get something very simple done. So this is one of my first key lessons that I've just learned about team building and all this stuff. Sitting in this meeting, and we're trying to get something very simple done, and we couldn't get it done. We're literally just writing a pretty simple onboarding guide for new hires, because we're probably going to go from 23 to, by this time next year, maybe 35 or 40 or something like that. So another growth spurt, and got to deal with all that stuff, and I want to make sure all the processes are nailed down. Couldn't get it done. And I was like, why is this conversation so hard, right? We kept like devolving into nitpicking on each other's leadership styles and stuff like that. I stopped and I took a deep breath and I just went, I don't really want to work with you anymore. And he goes, I don't want to work with you either. And I looked at him and I was like, all right, well, let's make that happen. And we got up and we're brothers and we hugged, and the next 2 days we started talking about how to transition stuff, and I announced it to the company in an all-hands meeting on Friday, and we all toasted his contribution and had a drink, and it's amazing. Like, you can tweet that. I mean, this is one of the best things that's happened. And he's had an incredible contribution to the company. He's going to move on and do something great. I'm his older brother. I think he's probably learned as much as possible from me, and now he's got to take it to the next level. So that lesson is, like, there are parts of when you're growing a company that, you'll think there's a set variable. For me, it was like, I'm just not going to fire Joe. Doesn't matter. No matter how bad those fights get or what, I'm not going to fire him. And for him, it was like, no matter how bad it gets, I'm not going to quit. Right? So you assume part of your world is locked down and it's not going to change. And so you forget the possibilities that if things do change. And so as soon as I knew this was going down and this transition was going to happen, I was like, oh my God, I don't have a chief operating officer anymore, and all the responsibilities associated with that. I can put here with our CFO, I can put here with our ops team, I can put here with our lab administrator, et cetera. I could buy another agency and put the head of that agency in the COO role now, and I couldn't do that before because I had someone who was in the COO role, and how is that going to work with who is my younger brother who's been there for, like, it's messy. And now I'm like, holy crap, I've got this piece in the executive team now that I can do whatever the hell I want with. And I don't have to do anything with it. I can just not have another COO for years because all those responsibilities are transitioned off. So that's really interesting. And so my world of possibilities is opened up after a key team member has left. And you don't think of it that way. You usually think of it like, oh my God, my world is going to be crushed because this person is in charge of operating the enterprise, office, technology, HR, finance, all of that. And the other thing is, when you're doing a startup, and not that we're a startup, when you're doing a startup, there are people that say, you don't need a COO. Like, don't hire a COO. I don't know what you need, first of all. And I don't think investors necessarily know what you need. And I won't say anything against Carla and any of the investors in the room, but you know what you need. I know what I needed. I needed somebody that could be what I've been told is called the inside guy, because I'm the outside guy. I do love being on stage. I love hustling. I love traveling and being out there and being in front of customers and closing deals and compelling people to join our team. And he hated that. He hates it. He'd be happy to sit at his computer all day and crank through incredible processes to make sure that the company can scale. And if someone tells you, don't hire that person, they're crazy. You hire who you think you need to hire. And so by putting that, the first hire, COO, was the first hire for me. Putting that person in place enabled me just to keep selling, keep finding talented people to join the team, and keep making sure that our processes and the vision for where the company were going were exactly correct. And that's what we've done. And what's interesting now, there were times when I thought, I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this business without Joe. I can't do this business without my chief operating officer. How would we operate the business? And I'll tell you, what is today, Wednesday? A week ago is when I had that conversation with him where we said we didn't want to work together, and I've already transitioned all the responsibility off of his plate, and I've already made all the changes I need to do. And some people might say, and I know he doesn't think this, some people might say, oh, well, you didn't totally replaceable then, right? Like, no, that's not really what was happening. It's just like if you're good at what you do, Blake was saying, pre-recruiting, I already knew 3 and 4 people that I'd want to bring into the company as soon as something happens, right? And so I'm making those phone calls. I'm always pre-recruiting. You have to do that. So maybe that's a little bit of the setup. I could go in a lot of different directions. So what are some things that we haven't covered yet tonight that might be interesting to cover that are pressing categories in the leadership and talent building side? No, he's not. Yeah, I wonder what he would say.
So, Peter, what's it like working with family? You started us down this topic,
Sure.
so
Sure.
I don't know how many people have had the opportunity or been presented with.
How many people have worked with family in the room? How many people have enjoyed the process? It's interesting. Okay, for me, I think it was essential. I turned over all of the bank accounts, the books, all of the most secure things in the world right in the very beginning to the person that I trusted the most in the world, which is my younger brother. And I didn't even have to think for a minute whether or not I was going to get screwed or had to worry about it for a minute. All I had to do was sell the shit out of what we did and pull amazing human beings into the company. And if I did that, we were great, which is what I did, right? So by working with family, that enabled me to have that ultimate confidence. A number of people that started companies around the same time as I had, which is 2007, I saw like start and stop and start. And I met one person like, yeah, I'm on my like third or fourth chief operating officer. I was like, holy crap. Like I would have like maybe 6 employees right now and would be fatter than I am and unhappy and losing my hair if I had gone through that process. So I think that working with family was crucial for me. I also have been building a different kind of company. Like in general, we are sort of a family, at least that's like what the culture's like. And I'm building a company that I hope lasts forever, which is a weird thing to do. Or at least, it used to be what everyone did, right? So like 100 years ago, that's what everyone, they wanted an empire and they would last forever. Now they're like, I want it to last 3 or 4 years, I'm gonna sell it. You know, so when you're building something forever, you make different decisions than you might otherwise. And not to say for those of you who are trying to sell the business in 3 to 5 years, you shouldn't. You should do whatever the hell you want. But for me, like, I am fixated on whether or not people are happy and fulfilled and feeling like they're a part of this thing that's much more than a profit-driven enterprise, which, you know, certainly we're profit-driven, but that's not really the mission. So. Yeah.
So having a COO with someone like your brother, and just hiring for that role in general, what things did you were you missing? You know, you just started the company. You were missing in yourself. You know, as a founder of this company, what things did you see something that you were lacking in yourself that you're like, aha, like my brother has got this. Like he's going to help me to take this to the next level.
Well, you know, the easy answer is time. Right. I'll be honest. I think I could do the entire job that he did because I feel like I'm like, you know, typical entrepreneur thinks he can do anything. So I feel like I could have done all those things, but I didn't have the time to do it. So all the inside stuff, right? And you have these weird meetings where you just learn these things in a very lucky way. I had breakfast with a guy who turned out to be a CEO coach. This is like month 2 of the company, and I didn't know he was a CEO coach, and I've never sat down with one again, but maybe I should. He was like, you know, Peter, tell me about the business. I'm like this. And he's like, oh, you're an outside guy. You need an inside guy. I was like, I don't know what that means. What does that mean? It's like, oh, you know, you love being out there, and you're going to do that. You're that charismatic leader, but you do not want to think about any of the blocking and tackling of the operations. You hate it. And I was like, yeah, I know. The way that I'm going to do the books this year is I'm going to spend less money than I take in. It's like, okay. That's what I did, and I gave all my credit card stuff and bank account stuff to our CPA at the end of the year and had him figure it out. And I wrote him a nice little check, and he was happy about it. And that's it, you know? But you can't operate a business that way. I'm probably I think I'm a poor operator, generally, like on the day-to-day blocking and tackling of, like, systems and such. But I do think I'm a really good manager. And I think it's because I don't view my role as the CEO, as the manager, as the boss. I view it much more in like a servant leadership capacity where it's my job to make sure these people have everything they need. They need every resource they need, the happiness they need, the coffee they need, the food they need, the whatever, the listening, just listening, you know, and sitting there and listening. There are many bosses that all they do is fucking talk at people. It's like, shut up, just listen to your people and you're going to understand your business better, you're going to understand what they're going to need better, you're going to understand so much more. So that's probably fortunate. I was questioning whether or not Joe had the kind of management caliber that we needed moving forward, and I can't know whether or not he would have been right moving forward because he's not going to be there. But I'm excited about where we are now.
You touched on it a little bit, the importance of empowering your employees to make their own decisions. Was that, I mean, like, you've been there, obviously, you're the founder, you've been there since day one. Has that been a struggle? Like, having worked at lots of companies, it's easier for bosses who, I had a boss once who wanted to write my emails for me, and that didn't go well. I'm not working there anymore, but how's that?
Yeah,
how's that
that's the hardest thing. The hardest thing is letting go of all that stuff, right? And especially when you're the solo founder and you are in a hyper creative business where you're being asked to like invent the future for people, you feel like, well, it's only me that can invent the future. Of course, it's like why they hire us. I thankfully didn't have a choice. Once we got to like 3 or 4 people and we were working on global campaigns, I just didn't have the capacity to know everything that was going on, even at that point. So now think about being like 4 or 5x, like that size. I operate under the assumption that everyone in the company is incredible at what they do and that they're going to do an incredible job, and that if they have a problem that they can't solve, they might ask me for help and that I might be able to solve that problem, but I'm going to default to asking them to try to solve the problem anyway without me solving it. And by doing that, it places an extreme amount of responsibility on the employees, which gives them an extreme amount of latitude to figure stuff out for themselves, which means they basically are inventing their own futures for themselves. And they would never feel constrained by some micromanaging boss, which I'm probably the opposite of.
As you said, though, you're the outside guy. So a lot of times when a client hears about iStrategy Jobs, they hear about it because they see you talk.
Yeah.
They see you at an event.
Yeah.
They see you from a blog post or Twitter or social media or whatnot.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I would imagine that when the client is signing up for iStrategy Jobs, they're signing up for Peter Corbett. They're not. I mean, so how do you? But you're fundamentally one person who can only be in one place at one time. How do you scale that?
That is how most of the stuff starts, not all of the stuff. What I do is I immediately put our people in front of our potential customers. And so that first meeting, like it used to be, I'm really just going to sell this deal and get it done. I'm going to sign the team. And it's like, then I can never get out of it. I immediately want people to understand that, like, I'm basically useless to you. Like, the only thing I'm going to do is make sure that you don't get screwed. I'm going to make sure that you have everything that you ever need, and our team is going to make sure that they deliver for you. And then if you have a problem, I'm going to either switch up the team, or I'm going to crack the whip, or I'm going to do what I got to do. And as soon as people realize that, they're like, oh, it's really the team that does everything. Peter doesn't do anything. He just like walks around and talks. Okay. Which is a pretty good gig, I'll have to say. I do some things sometimes, but we won't get into that.